Morning, everybody. All right, let's wake up and stand up and sing along to this beloved song by Johnny Nash. You're still sitting. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see obstacles in my way. Gone all the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Oh yes, I can make it now, the rain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright,
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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue sky. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see obstacles in my way. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright,
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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright,
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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright,
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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright,
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 sunshiny day. Thank you all. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to make a very brief announcement or two, and then we're going to get on with the service. We have a very beautiful and packed service today, so be in touch. It's going to be wonderful. There will be no Wednesday evening meditation. We are going to be doing a New Year's Eve special meditation service. On New Year's Eve, that's Thursday, at 11:15. The doors will open. You can come in. We're going to arrange it so that we will be meditating into the new year. And this is what we do every year. So those of you that are wanting to be awake and in touch with, we'll do that very special New Year service and meditation, 11:15 on Thursday, no meditation on Wednesday. We have a burning bowl ceremony taking place today, but it's going to be taking place really at the very end of the service. If you're not in touch with it, those of you that are watching on screen, it's all about letting go of the things that you would rather not have limiting your life. So you can just let them go. We do it through a special ceremony here, but you can do it just by knowing, I don't need this in my life anymore. Use that affirmation whenever it comes up in the new year. I don't need this in my life anymore. Okay, enjoy.
Good morning, Unity. Oh, we're so happy you're here. So, we have got a beautiful piece for you. It's a chant. Want to tell them about it?
Yes, so we're going to sing it once through so you can hear how it goes. And then there's an arm motion that just talks about washing over us. So we're going to have our arms go up and over like that. So we'll have you stand up and do this with us, and we're just going to sing a chant with different words as we go.
Yes,
So.
please feel free to stand up
Yes.
and let your body move in it. Get up, dance a little. Yeah. Absolutely. We want you to feel this in your body. We want light to just pour through you. The song is so beautiful. So,
What she said.
what she said.
Yeah.
That's what she said. All right.
Okay, and this is this is how it
Same.
goes.
We let the love wash over us. We let it be. Okay, rehearsal's over. I think it's time. You guys ready? Here we go. We let the love wash over us. We let it be.
We let the peace.
We let the peace wash over us. We let it be.
We let the joy.
We let the joy wash over us. We let it be.
We let the hope.
We let the hope wash over us. We let it be. Okay, got a little jam going down. You sway your hips, you move your arms. This is where we're gonna have a little fun.
And we're going to start with truth.
Yes, we shall. Woo. We let the truth wash over us. We let it be.
We let the strength.
We let the strength wash over us. We let it be.
We let the light.
We let I see you guys. Shake it out. Come on. Feel it with us. Woo. We let it be. And just do your own thing. We let the rain wash over us. We let it be.
One more time with love.
We let the love wash over us. We let it be.
All right. We take these with us.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all out there. Can you guys turn the house lights up a little bit so we can feel more interactive in this discussion today?
That's good. No, I better turn them down, huh? I'm joking.
Oh,
Now that
okay.
you've seen them.
Yeah, now
Now
that
that we've
you've
seen
seen
'em.
yeah.
Okay.
So today we're doing a ministers panel. We're joined as our guest today, Shad Groverland.
Yes.
If you don't know him from before, he was the associate with me till just about September. And then he went on to do great things. What was it that you went on to do?
I accepted the position of Executive Director for Unity Worldwide Ministries. So I now oversee our home office staff for this side of the movement. Under my direction is overseeing the churches and the ministries, the licensing and ordination of the ministers and teachers, the various schools that we have throughout the world. And it's amazing to see. We have unities in Nigeria, we have them in Australia, we have them in the UK, all over Canada. It's amazing I get to work with all these people all around the world. And it's just, I'm humbled by the experience. So, then the other side of the movement is Unity World Headquarters, which is headed by Jim Blake, and he handles Daily Word and all the printing aspects, Unity Magazine, and the property of Unity Village. So,
In Silent Unity.
and Silent Unity.
Yeah.
So we split those duties, and in that way.
So we thought we would just do a ministers panel on, wrapping out this last year. We've got New Year's this Friday, or New Year's Eve this Thursday, which we'll have a meditation to pray our way into it. But we want to discuss, what we have learned, and it's always good to take a look back on a year to figure out how we want to move forward. We can really discover what we don't want to bring with us. We also can discover what we also gained from this roller coaster, as they say, depending on where you were spiritually, I suppose.
Right. And we got a lot of interesting questions from people. So we're going to start with one.
If we kept scooting back, at what point Syntysche would wonder what's going on.
Come on, Syntysche.
Yeah.
Right.
How y'all doing? You're so quiet. Is everyone okay?
Yeah, they're fine. They have masks on. They can't say anything.
And actually, our first question is about masks.
Yeah.
So people sent in questions. Oh, no, it's not. I think it's the next one.
I'm sure.
About this year, or just wanting us to discuss different topics around. So I guess this question is,
I was at the first service. We're
Do we
going
want
to
to
go
start where
down.
we left off, or do
Yeah.
you want to pick up?
We're going to pick up, actually, do you believe that wearing masks? That's 4 down, I think? Yeah.
Do you believe that wearing masks and social distancing for a long time will have a detrimental effect on human relationships in the future? That's the question. And it's not that I haven't heard that spoken by some people, that this could be really harmful to us in our relationships in the future, because we're becoming so wary of our contact with other human beings because we have to wear masks and be concerned about passing this virus on to someone else. But then we have the social distancing, and then we have the sequestering, shutting down. So our social lives are seriously impacted by this COVID pandemic. Is that going to have a long-range effect on us, and really, will it have a long-range effect on our children? Who, you know, children, when they go to school and they're out, they're playing together all the time. They're learning their social, understanding from children and carrying on and doing things. And so now a lot of that has been curtailed because of the COVID pandemic. I believe that we will bounce back. I wonder, once we get beyond these restrictions, in other words, when the COVID virus has been brought under control and possibly eliminated, which is what we're praying for, I think that we human beings will bounce back. But what will we bounce back to? Because we were already social distancing, and we'll let you guys take it from there.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Oh, I think the answer to that question depends on how much you've let fear seep into your consciousness during this process. You look at survivors of the Great Depression or survivors of large events in history, that's with them for the rest of their life. It's an impact in their consciousness. You talk about people that went through the Great Depression, their concept of money from then on has changed. It never went back. A lot of people say that they're very controlling with their finances. They don't spend, they save, they hold, they don't let their money go because of what happened during that situation. So there's a possibility that that impact can last, all depending on who you were during that situation. So anyone who's lost themselves in the fear of what's happening right now is going to have a very difficult time curtailing that fear once it's done. It could last with them for decades. It could last with them for a lifetime. So really, right now is probably one of the most important aspects of what's going to happen in the years to come. Because if we're not managing our own fear, it's rooting itself within us. And we've been talking about this from the very beginning. You cannot be afraid of this. You cannot let the media scare you into believing you need to be afraid of this. You need to be afraid of your neighbor. You need to be afraid you're going to get this. You need to be afraid you're going to die. Because that is going right into your subconscious. And once something's in your subconscious, it is so hard to get out. You've got to be doing the spiritual practice. You've got to be socially distancing yourself from the negativity that's being spewed at you from the media. Mm-hmm. You've got to disconnect from that, from the people that are constantly pushing on you that you should be afraid, you should be afraid, you should be afraid. And just accept that this is a process, it's a part of life. I'm putting my mask on because apparently that's what the experts say is the thing to do. I'm not afraid of what could happen. I'm just moving through life and going on. And when it's over, it's over. And I'm still the same person when it's over. But if I'm so wrapped up in it as it's happening, once it's over, I won't realize it's over. And I keep thinking about, when a giant war is over, like World War II or something, and people actually went into bunkers and hid. They're sent down there for months, sometimes years before the war was over, because they didn't come up to find out what happened. And this is a real thing that happens in the world. If you're going into that bunker of fear, you may not know when this is over. Your subconscious may not know when this is over, and it might hold you there.
Yeah.
And it takes 21 days to make a new habit. And as far as the masks go and social distancing, we are months into creating a new habit for the safety of others. And yet already we were experiencing social distancing just naturally for the last few years. I mean, if you look back on the sermons archive of Jack and Shad and I talking, it's almost like it was predicted that something was going to give. Something had to make something happen, because we were talking about the isolation that we were all starting to go into, or children were going into, by playing in their phones, going to the computers, nobody sitting and having dinner or coffee together. They're playing on their phones, half listening to each other and not actually listening. And the intimacy and the connection was already waning as we went into the pandemic. And then we go in the pandemic and they're saying, well, now you have to isolate yourself, when we were already doing it to ourselves, but now someone else told us we have to isolate, which has caused a reaction of, I need community. I need to be with people. I need to hug people, right? So it's a really interesting thing that people were already getting pretty comfortable with being super isolated because we were becoming an extremely OCD country or world. Everything's dirty, everything's dangerous, and our children weren't falling off bikes anymore. We didn't let them ever learn how to actually hurt themselves. So they knew what to do to not hurt themselves. And we were becoming so, like Shad said last service, numb. We weren't letting our kids experience what you need to learn to become powerful beings in this world. And so something had to give. And one of our questions last service was, do you believe God created this pandemic for a reason? And so we kind of covered that, which we believe that we are the conduits of God, and our collective energy, being in this distance energy, brought it on ourselves, our lack of harmony with the planet, our lack of harmony with each other, our lack of harmony, because it's all about coming into balance, back to balance. And when things get off, something has to tweak it back to balance. So some people might have been adding really good consciousness to the world, but other people weren't. So everybody had to get put in this melting pot to readjust.
Do you remember, you just made me think of this. My dad, I don't know if it was for my birthday or something, we went paragliding. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was outside North Boulder up here where you go paragliding, and you practice on the ground first. You have the parachute behind you, and you run so it just lifts up over your head. You never jump off a mountain, you're just running across a field, and they teach you that if you pull against the chute, it collapses. It folds over next to you. You have to always step under it. You always have to adjust yourself to what the chute's doing above you. And if it pulls to the left, you have to step to the left and get underneath it. You can't pull it back over the top of you. And that seems like that's our struggle with this pandemic. That's a struggle with nature. The things we're always trying to pull it to fit our needs, to fit the way we think it should be, instead of adjusting ourselves back into alignment with the natural flow. There's a natural flow of air happening above you, and the chute's just adjusting to that. And you could adjust to that natural flow, but if you fight it, it collapses. And if you're actually up in the sky, that could be deadly. So that's why if you practice on the ground, just to ease underneath it and go with the flow. But our resistance to it makes the dangerous aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what can people do to deal with the isolation and depression that this virus is causing? Well, we talk about that all the time. You know, in Unity, we believe that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, is in our midst. In the Gospel of Thomas, it is written that it is all around you. Jesus says to his disciples that the kingdom of God is all around you, but you don't see it. And we operate from that awareness that we're not looking for some kingdom of God beyond this life. So we should be getting into it right where we are in this life, doing what we're doing. But in order to understand that, we have to learn to transcend the mundane thinking of the world that we were born and raised in and educated in, because it's based upon a false interpretation of life, which leads us to a lot of fear and self-condemnation and guilt and disease. So we have to do the spiritual practices that are outlined in Unity in order to live in a consciousness above the mundane, ordinary, convoluted thinking of the world. So it means you've removed yourself, you're removing yourself from being tossed this way and that way by everything that is put out there. So much of it is put out there for commercial reasons to keep you as a good consumer, afraid of what's coming, afraid of what may have passed, concerned, guilty. So we have to, dissolve that. We have to just reject that and start to live, regardless of what everybody else may be doing. We take to task our own awareness and we live in a higher frame of mind, which is we look for the good, we speak about the good, we bless, we teach, we forgive, we honor peace, and I think that's where we enter into the kingdom of God that is in our midst, which is here now. And we can be there, but we have to do the spiritual practice.
And we have to believe that to have faith in something grand is happening in the midst of us right now. And all
Right.
these challenges that we're all personally facing through this pandemic, some people are witnessing their businesses falling away and don't even know what their career is going to be. Some people have actually lost a loved one to COVID. We've had, I don't think we've had anybody in our congregation that has lost, but my mom lost an uncle. But it's hit everybody in a different way. So in a way, we all have been, we're vulnerable to this thing, and we've all had the challenge, and in a way, it's brought us kind of back together. One thing we've definitely seen in our spiritual center is that we have more attendance. Not necessarily in the building, but on live stream. It's bringing people back to their connection with this greater power, this greater love we call God, source. They need to lean on this greater something to move through this. And it's also, it's kind of been a constant state of surrender for people. Having to accept that they don't know what tomorrow brings, and having faith that whatever unfolds is leading us to a peaceful land, to a more loving world, to a more compassionate world, taking better care. Look at the outpouring that's happening with our congregation with the food pantry. Every week we had those barrels outside just open, and we'd have to bring the food in all day. We were filling a small truck bed every week and bringing it in the Harvest of Hope pantry. We'd always say, "What church are you guys? Your parishioners are incredible," and we're so grateful every week. They're just so blown away by the outreach that the center's done, and that has not always been our experience here, but it's evoked and it's awoken what actually matters.
And that last Native American drive for the Wounded Knee Reservation, we had,
Unbelievable.
we had an
Outpouring.
18-wheeler we almost filled with all of the gifts, donations, and things that people were needing up there. It was an amazing outpouring. So
people are
yeah,
stepping into their divinity as a conduit for God's love. While we're going through this, they're waking up realizing that they are going to be the change they want to see in this world. It's about being the authentic, best version of yourself. And if we can ride this out and kind of live in the state of surrender and bring this into this new earth, it's blinding in beauty what we are going to see. Mm-hmm. The unfoldment is going to be super unbelievable, but nobody really grows from things going easy. Difficult times grow us. They deepen our roots if we will let it.
right.
If we don't go to the TV and the news and the CNN and have this constant radio telling you what's going on in the world, what's the wars, and Sandy, did you want to say something? Mm-hmm. So
Sandy's one of our prayer partners.
yeah,
You
go
want
ahead.
to
Yeah, go
summarize?
ahead. No, you go ahead.
If you couldn't hear that watching online, she was saying that if you're going into a place of depression, to find a way to give to someone else, that can help bring you out of that. And that's something I actually wanted to say, and I appreciate you saying that, but I also want to clarify before we get too far that the word depression has a clinical aspect to it that is not just what we're talking about. We're talking about people that normally are not clinically depressed, and they're feeling more down than usual. That's what we're talking about. Clinical depression is a different thing, and that's something that needs to be dealt with probably with your psychiatrist or professionals that deal with that area. If you're having clinical depression, then that's something you have to deal with professionally. And I have a friend who struggles with clinical depression, and she says, you know, people just say meditate, and that's not fair to say. And so I want to be clear that we have to get to ourselves to a baseline of health before you really have an opportunity for the spiritual practice to grow on top of that. So sometimes you do need the tools that are available to you through the medical system to help you get to that baseline of health, be able to start working. I mean, you can always do the meditation and prayer practice, but we're not trying to say that's going to fix clinical depression. We have to understand that sometimes you have to reach out for help in those areas. And I did want to talk about the aspect of giving. And there's so much of getting down, I'm going to just call it getting down on ourselves, is that we're getting overly selfish into our own experience and thinking about ourselves and our problems and our issues. And we're stopping to think about that there's a whole world out there, and that we're listening to the social media and the media that's talking about all the negativity. But there are hashtags you can follow on social media that are specifically about positive news and positive events that are happening to help you push through the algorithms that are trying to just push you negativity. If you didn't know that, when you get on social media, it specifically pushes you content that's negative because it knows you're going to engage with it more. If you don't specifically go in looking for positive information when you go on social media and search for hashtags with positive results, you will constantly be pushed negative information. That's how the algorithms work. And there are nonprofits actually trying to fight to change that. But that's how these algorithms work in social media. So if you think the world is negative, it's because that's all you're being shown. And if you're watching news channels, they do the exact same thing. They get a response out of you by showing negative information. But there's a ton of beautiful and amazing things happening in the world that we need to engage with and physically and financially support. So that when we come out of this, it's a different world than when we went into it. Mm-hmm. The people that are struggling on the bottom right now, the people that are struggling because of the pigment in their skin, we have to have that be changed by the time we're done with this. That means we're working right now, not just sitting back waiting for this to end. We should be fighting for these causes right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't sleep last night, like around 2. I tend to do that, thinking about service or whatever. And I did turn on the TV, and I watched 2 episodes of this show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. Have you seen this lady?
Sounds wonderful.
Well, it's an incredible show because this woman finds all the pit bulls that have been abandoned, or she gets them out of the shelters because people are scared of them, and she rehabilitates them and gets them ready for families. And she has hundreds, and she raises money for it, and then the people that take care of them are parole people that are on parole that could never get jobs, and they go through healing by her having them work with these bullied dogs, with these people that have probably been bullied in their lives. Super beautiful, really. And just watching it, I always cry because I just, one of our dogs when we were young had pit bull in them, and they just have there's a look in them that reminds me of Gashawi. And to see them get their forever homes, that's the whole thing. And that's so uplifting because it's a work of service. That woman has found her role as the pit bull queen in the United States. And she's housed thousands of dogs that would have been actually put down. Like watching things where people are of service, it makes you want to be of service and find your passion that would make you, want to go out there and make a difference. And then I went back to bed and I had a dream that we did this panel. And I ended the panel with, and by the way, they're here today. And they're all outside with a bunch of pit bulls in the front for y'all to take home as a constellation prize for the ministers' panel. So they're outside and their pit bulls are waiting for you to take home.
That's what Oprah would have done. Everybody gets
a puppy.
So what's our next question?
Guess we got off the point. It's
Well,
like you're sitting at our Christmas dinner table right now.
You brought up the surrender. That's a key element in personal transformation. And it starts with the whole concept of not giving in to the difficulties that show up in our lives. Not giving into them and feeling like you've been singled out or you've been put upon, or you've been somehow or other picked out to suffer. The first thing we do in surrender is when these things are coming up in our experience, we have to have the faith and to give them to God. So that, imagine if you really have this kind of faith where when negative, limited things are happening, you just turn within and you give them over to God. And you say, you understand that God will handle this in whatever way it needs to be handled, but you personally are going to go about your business and do the things you have to do. Like, you go to your job, or you do the laundry, or you clean the garage, or you answer your emails, or you do whatever else you have to do. But whenever the thought of the limitation comes up, you simply, through faith, know God is taking care of this, so I don't have to be terribly overly involved with it. And that's the beginning of surrender. You surrender these limited things that have entered your experience, but after a while, and this is where we'll come into what Eckhart Tolle is advocating, you will have so completely entered into the enlightened state of living in this moment, absolutely aware that you are one with God. And as things arrive, you will see your way into them, flow through them, and watch them as they go their way.
As many of you know, I've been sharing in my services, I've been witnessing a friend of mine she did actually pass this last Tuesday, a close friend of mine, but the journey of going through that from start to finish started in March of 2020, which is just really bizarre with COVID, so, and there can be that victim moment where you feel like, why would this be happening, and how could this be happening to a mom with a kid here, and all those things, but to watch the journey of someone appreciate absolutely every breath of life during that, and the things that would come out of her mouth, it was like sitting in the presence of the Christ, as acceptance happened for her. And the other side started to tune in, and there was a sense that she could feel the other world calling for her as she was leaving this world. And, having her leave on Tuesday night was a relief. When you see someone that's really sick, there is a point where you just hurt that they're struggling. And the freedom, that feeling of flying, when you love somebody so much, you feel the release that this body, when it's done, But Christmas Eve into Christmas morning, it was like I was looking through from this bigger picture of life, that every conversation, every single thing, I was so deeply present of how blessed I am. Every annoyance, every good thing, every wonderful, it was just a sense of gratitude at the core of everything. To look through life sometimes, to think if this was the last year you're going to be here and it's 2020, what are you going to do differently? Because you have to find the midst peace here. It's not about the distant day of next year and everybody gets a shot and so maybe this thing disappears, or we're all waiting. Everybody's like, thank God it's going to be 2021. What's coming 2021? Right? Everybody keeps saying that. Or is it that you're coming for 2021? You're the one that's awakening to a presence and a state of surrender, that the things outside of you that fall away, you realize are divine order. That there's something else waiting in the midst. As you serve others, as you are kind, as you are authentic, as you are truthful, as you bring the spectrum and the meter of honesty back to this planet and this world, that everybody's skewing towards that. And things falling away, if maybe you don't need such a big house anymore. Maybe we don't need, all of the outer things. If we have this conversation with your dad and this, or the conversation with your brother and your mother and your, the dogs and the cats and the kids and when you have that homework and you're like, I don't understand this math. You know, having somebody done math? Math is so different now. And I was already bad at math, so let's just add that to it. It's just like, COVID, it just keeps on giving. Thank God I have Mike. I tell you what, I don't know what I would do when it comes to the math part of the school part. It's like math, I literally cannot deal with this part. I found my boundaries, okay?
But did you give it over to God?
I gave it to Mike, and he is God.
Okay.
The math god.
The math God.
That's funny. Aaron, having been raised in Southern Baptist faith, she's really brought me to the attention that we have our own language in unity. I never even realized the things we say. We have our own language, and I've always just taken for granted that that's how people talk. And so occasionally I'll say something, and she's like, what does that even mean? You just say that. And so one of my employees who comes from another faith came in just to rap with me to talk and chat. He's one of the few that actually comes into the building. And he said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, of course. He said, you guys say, and so it is, all the time. What does that mean? He's like, you pray and then you just say, and so it is, as if that meant something, and you stop praying. And he's like, what just happened there? I have no idea what just happened there. And I thought, I've never thought about, and so it is. I just say, and so it is. And so I had to sort of bring him into it. I'm like, well, in unity we accept that life is the way it is. And we're just a participant in an experience that's unfolding. And so whatever I've prayed for is a request, but it really just is. There's just this isness that happens here. And I can have a preference of the way things I'd like them to go, and I can really want something to go my way, but ultimately, it just is. And any experience I come into contact with, I have a choice of how I want to experience it, but it just is. It's not bad, it's not good, it's not for me, it's not against me, it just is. So in every prayer, I should be reminding myself, this shouldn't be a request to change things into my favor. I have to remember, it just is. So I'm really praying to align myself with the isness of things and stop trying to judge things as good or bad or try to make them for me or against me. And it goes back to that, it's in God's hands. I'm an active participant, but the outcomes are out of my hands. I'm playing the game of life here. Well, what is at the end of the game is not my choice. I have to enjoy the game as I'm playing it. The outcome is irrelevant because it just is.
Mike and I have one. He stopped me on one of them because he grew up Jewish. And one day he's like, so what does this mean when you say this? Because I guess I say a lot, I'm just holding space. He's like, okay, so when you're like holding this space, like what does it actually mean? Which it means I'm just being quiet and trying to hear the answer, like from the universe. It's like I am in a situation, I'm not going to make a flippant decision because life is making me do it. Holding space means I'm stepping back for a minute. But it was like, I've never analyzed what it actually meant too. It's so funny. We do have a language that we use, and it's nice to sit down and almost like define it for yourself. What does that mean, to sit and hold space, or holding space in counseling, or, you know?
But most of the time, though, the ultimate communication is not just in the words. People pick up, you use an expression, but they pick it up because you understand it a certain way, and they get it. And that's where this rapport, which we're lacking now because we have so many different distractions with the cell phones and the iPads and the computers that isolate us from communication with one another face to face. You miss that true communication. The inflections in my voice and the look of my face and my hands tell you something that I'm communicating. And that's the beautiful part. We are all seriously connected to one another on a really higher level. And if we continue to operate in isolation, we're losing a lot of that. And that's where healing actually resides, on this higher level.
Has anyone else discovered how much they normally read lips to understand what people are saying? I have realized, I think 70% of the way I understand people talking is reading their lips. I can't understand anything right now. I honestly am struggling so hard with this. I can't see your lips. I don't know what you're saying. Like the sound is lost on me. I just don't know what you're saying. And so Aaron and I, with 2 masks on, just forget it. It's just like, we'll talk when we get home. This is not happening.
Right. Well, you always had a problem as a kid. I would have to say, Shad, look at me.
It's true. I wouldn't hear you unless I was actually looking at someone. There's something about the visual aspect of that. I'm a visual understander. I have to see your lips moving to understand that that was a P or that was a T or whatever that was that's coming.
Right.
You know, and you have to really follow your intuition through this process for yourself. You know, for us, we have thieves oil, which is there to protect your immune system. It boosts your immune system, and it kind of puts a wall from you, from whatever illness or whatever. So it's a nice way to remind yourself that you're just protected. Spirit's protecting you. You know, you will be divinely guided whether you should go into a store. You won't be able to park at the Walgreens, and you'll go, okay, I'm not supposed to be here today. You know, you'll be divinely guided if you do that time to meditate and you move into that super hyper consciousness where you're aware, you got an awareness, you've tuned into this greater power, this greater love. You're divinely guided what you should and shouldn't be doing. Like with counseling people and being with people that are super isolated and already were isolated before COVID, and they had little outlets, and those only little outlets were also completely taken away, or the holidays were taken away. I will have a counseling session where they're leaving, and we've had masks on the whole time, and I will be literally pushed into hugging them. I will know I have to. You know, the universe is like, knows what it's showing you. I know that we're told we're not supposed to, but we have to be able to touch some people. They need, and I know that the universe would protect me physically. Because this hug is a matter of life or death for people that are in a really dark place sometimes. Or making that phone call when somebody keeps coming to your head that you know is alone. Make that phone call. And stay on that phone no matter what you have to get to. If they're still talking, let them be heard. Let them be seen at least through the telephone. We have got to reach out to our lonely friends and family members and take that time to not text them, to listen, to ask them questions, to be there for them, and for once be truly God as an approaching through the human being, listening to what the universe needs you to do right now.
Yep. And I think one of the cautions we have to take up is that with this COVID pandemic thing, you know, in the book of Job, it gives a real certain truth. That which I fear comes upon me. You've got to be careful about that. And that's why you have to dismiss so many thoughts. That's why you have to live above the thinking of the world, because, you know, we are so conditioned to watching television and, you know, getting information online. And a lot of it is simply there to address your adrenaline fears, to get you to watch because it's something scary, it's something you got to be concerned about. We have to learn how to rise above that and think above that and dismiss those things that cause that fear and limitation.
Do we have another question we're going to get to?
I think we got to wrap it up with one. Does anybody have a question that you'd like to ask?
Look at these people are all enlightened.
We have that question about, is this the end of days?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a fun topic.
No, we did get a question. Does Unity believe the COVID pandemic is an act of God? For what purpose? And, you know, I think we answered that
Being out of
in
harmony
different ways.
and out of
Probably a
balance.
better question in here.
The last question is, the Bible talks of plagues and end of days, and do you think we're in the end of days?
I think we're at the end of some days.
Right.
We're in an end of an era that needed to leave.
No, we can't leave them with that. To really understand what the Bible means about there'll be plagues and wars and rumors of wars, and children will deliver up parents to courts and prosecute them and be against them, and there'll be division all over the place. And when this happens, you better hide yourself because the tribulation is everywhere. What they are talking about is the tribulation that takes place from the dissolution of the purely self-centered ego awareness and the coming of the divine, insightful Christ consciousness or divine awareness. The breaking down of the ego-centered idea of life and its necessity to try to control conditions and circumstances and other people outside of itself. Its necessity to be greedy and to fight for more, and its necessity to have better and to look at life in these separate terms. That will break down and pass away for there to be the new heaven and the new earth in which they will actually be one. And the master of life in those Bible passages says, when you see these plagues and these tribulations and these wars taking place, rejoice, because it is like a woman who's in childbearing. She has the pain while she's going through childbirth, but when it's finished, she enjoys the majesty and the beauty of her new life with her new child. So that's the way it's described. If we're going to go, we are, and possibly this pandemic is helping us get through this illusionary idea of separation and fear and getting into divine love, consideration, compassion, and caring.
All right, I think that was a great way to end it. Let's take
That's
an
not too
offering
bad.
for- Yeah,
No.
I think that was
I
good.
thought, what do you think, Shad?
I give it an 8.5.
Let's go to the Russian judge, see what they gave him. It was good enough.
All right.
So we're going to have a burning bowl ceremony right after we take a tithe, but right now we're going to take a tithe for unity.
Okay.
And you all should be writing your messages of what you would like to eliminate from your life, and then you'll walk up here and burn it in our sacred burning bowl.
And then we will have an affirmation that you can take out of a basket. And we've found over the years that the affirmations people pick up, they have to contact us and say, oh my God, it was so meaningful for what was going on in my life. So it's an interesting process. It's a prayerful thing that we're doing here to take that which we don't want in our lives anymore and to free ourselves of it. And we do it symbolically by burning it in our burning bowl. But for those of you at home, you're probably already tuned out. I think you're gone. Maybe not. Maybe you're still here. But for you, you can do what I said before, that you need to know what it is you no longer need in your life that's causing you some limitation, and be done with it. And you can say, have an affirmation into the new year. Whenever this idea or this thing comes up into your experience, you say, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. I'm giving this over to God. Okay, so we're going to do our offering now. Just bring to mind what gift you'd like to make to Unity of Boulder to continue this ministry, which takes place all week in every way. And let's bless this offering with this affirmative prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. Okay.
And now we have April Joy and Nicole.
They're going to sing first. Okay, good. That's a perfect way to get us into the burning bowl. It's one of my favorite songs from the movie Rent.
Do you know it's one of mine? Top 5. I absolutely love this song. It's nice to know I'm not alone.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. We're singing Seasons of Love. It is from Rent. Enjoy. $525,600 minutes, 500 525,000 moments so dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, and laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love measured in love? Seasons of love, seasons of love. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to Berlin, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man?
In truths that she learned, or in times that she cried, in bridges she burned, or the way that she died.
It's time now to sing out, but the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember, here in the light of friends.
Remember the love.
Oh, you got to remember the love. You know that love is a gift from up above. Share, give love, spread love. Measure your life in love.
Seasons of
Measure your life, measure your life in love.
Okay, this is how it's,
Submitted by people online to be burned.
okay. Okay. The way this is going to work, first of all, since we're going to run a little bit over time, it doesn't matter. It's really necessary because all that you see taking place up here, and we get the accolades and people thank us and they love the service and everything, but behind the scenes, we have some people that are really instrumental in making this work, and certainly one of them is Josh, who's doing our sound for all of this. He's doing the balance. He's an amazing individual. And
Prayer partners say that they're available after the service, right?
yes, we have to remind you, these prayer partners standing here with the white sashes on them, they're there for you. If you have a particular challenge you want to pray with someone about, just remain seated as everybody clears out of the sanctuary, and they will come to you where you're seated and take you down to our beautiful meditation room and say a prayer with you. And who we got up in the booth today? Steve?
And Megan.
Megan and Steve. Okay. These people are there for us doing it, the beautiful stuff that they do with the backdrops that you see on the wall and the lighting that you see up on the stage. We couldn't do it as well as we do it without them. Thank you for doing it. All right. Somebody just told me to put my mask on. All right, I guess we can keep our mask on as we do this. You can hear me.
Try to stay 6 feet apart as you come down. We're going to start with the back row, and then we'll go to the next, and just go around that way to the back to your seats.
That's right. So you're going to come down the center aisle?
Affirmation when you're done burning something. They're in these baskets right here.
Okay. And then you'll take one of the affirmations, go back to your seats, and then we'll have a closing prayer together. Okay. We have the people in the back row. Come down. Come on down. We do it from the back row. And then the next row. Come down. And burn whatever it is you want to be done with.
What
Just lay it right in there.
taken
All right, leave it. Good. It's good.
Why have you come to love,
All right.
serve and remember, to love, serve and
You can pick up an affirmation over there. Thank you. All right. Don't worry about it. It's going to burn. All right. Just drop it in there. It'll burn. I'll make sure it's going to burn. Although I didn't bring my snuffer out here.
Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken earth? Why have you come? service on Thursday at 11:15 p.m. till 12:15 a.m. And we're all going to rise and we're going to close with Let There Be Peace on Earth today.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, and the honoring. Let me walk through my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous song. You take and live in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
So it is.
And I let go, I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. In the Spirit. Let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I'm free. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Great singing. Happy New Year. We'll see you next Sunday or Thursday, too.